Hi, good evening, everyone. We will be starting soon at 8:30. Right now it's 8:25. We will be waiting for others to come in. Please, right now we just say hello to everyone. Today, just now, it was raining heavily. I hope everyone have reached your home and have your dinner ready. Today will be quite a night because today it is not just about talking about what do you have in your budget, but we're gonna discuss about it, whether it's good, whether it's bad, whether you have to be concerned about it or you should be happy about it. With the panelists over here, it will be I believe that it will be an active debate that we will have here. And please be patient. We shall wait for some of the other participants to come in before we start at 8:30. Thank you very much. For those who have come in already, maybe you would also like to introduce yourself by putting up your name and your company in the chat box so that we know which company are you from, and also, if possible, you add in your name, company, and what industry are you in, so that when we talk about the budget, then we can relate better to your business. Then you can take more from this budget, that this discussion, you can have a better insight later on. So please introduce yourself in the chat box. Introduce your name, company, and your industry, please. Oh, hi, Azli. Azli is from Maybank. We have Jeremy from Edson, training and consulting industry. We have Lionel from MacAir, trading and fabrication of industrial equipment. Okay. Who else? We have Jack. Oh, hi, Jack. Jack from Mars Valley, telecommunication and ICT. I heard that he actually embarking into a very sexy industry, which is the drone industry. Student from Asas Dunia Sendra Berhad, SaaS, Software as a Service. Okay. Someone from Intellect, Lynn from Intellect Worldwide, if I'm not mistaken, this is a trademark intellectual property agent. We have Ong from Crystal Edible Ice. Wow. Crystal Edible Ice, meaning the ice can be eaten. Okay. Hi, CK Cheng. Audit firm in PJ. Okay. I think that audit firm from PJ, CK, you should be very familiar with what the budget is all about. We have Masnida over here. Masnida, health and beauty, semiconductor industry. Masnida is my ex-colleague in Scully. Hi, Masnida. We have Gerard here. We have Bernard Lim from Fruit Plus Agriculture. Datin Suriza, nice to see you here. Training. Oh, a lot of friends here. Amir is still a student from Taylor's and here to widen the knowledge and exposure. Honored to be among such a distinguished crowd. So I'm very, very happy to see some students really taking an attention to the budget. Not many students care about the budget, actually. I'm very happy to see that. We have Meredith from Tricep Financial Software House. We have Muhammad Hill. Oh, we have also Mr. Poti from Meow Meow Food. Anyone of you miss Meow Meow? The snack food that we always have, Meow Meow. Okay, we just wait another 1 minute. We just wait for another 1 minute, then we shall start the event without waiting anymore. Okay. Everyone is coming in, continuously coming in. Alvin from Smart B Solutions, they are into inventory solution provider. I think it's Industry 4.0. People start coming in 8:30. So Malaysian time, we always allow 1 to 2 minutes for people to come in. Belinda from Wood Care. Hi, Belinda. So again, welcome everyone. Today will be very much of a discussion, a dialogue. We are not doing a seminar over here. It's just a dialogue. We shall wait for several more of the participants to come in before we start the event. Because I can see from my screen over here, every seconds there are several people is coming in. So we shall wait another 1 minute. Subi is here. Now, who is in the northern region? If you're in the northern region, please note that there are a lot of the incentive and support that the Northern Corridor Investment Authority is offering. Okay, Subi is from the NCIA. So thank you for coming in. And we have, I just saw Casey. Casey Leong just came in. Casey is from the food ingredients. Okay. Many friends over here, many business associates that has always been in our events. Thank you very much for continuing to support us. I will start in 30 seconds. I will start counting right now, 30 seconds, then we will start. To be fair to everyone, we shall not wait further too long, and we shall start very soon, okay? For those who have just came in, please put in your name, your company, and your industry so that the panelists will know you better. And when we discuss about the budget, it's easier for us to relate your business, and the information will be easily absorbed by you as well because it's more relevant to your business. Yeah. Okay, let's start the event. We stop the music and let us start the event right now. Good evening, everyone, and welcome everyone to today's event. I'm King Tik here, the Managing Consultant of Bizsphere, a SME branding, marketing, and business transformation specialist. Thank you for joining in the Strong, Mighty, Enterprising SME Financial Management Weekly Web Forum Series. SME is an acronym known by many as the small, medium enterprises, but yet to Bizsphere, SME has a more meaningful definition. Okay, we might be very small. Okay, SMEs, we might be small, but we have strong fighting spirit and weather the storm. Throughout these 2 years, many of us are still survive, as some even grow even stronger. So I always say that the SMEs is always very strong in nature. Some of us may already be in the medium size of the company, but to be successful in business, being big is not the key factor. It's not the only key factor, but the key is that we need to be mighty in everything that we do and how do we do it. and we are only an enterprise. Okay, we are not only an enterprise, but we are with strong enterprising spirit. Why? Because SMEs, we always find new ways. If there is challenges ahead of us, we'll find another way. If something is blocking you, we find another way. So for SMEs, we always have the enterprising spirit. So that's why that I always say that the SME, the real meaning is actually strong, mighty, and enterprising SME instead of a small, medium enterprise company. Bizsphere will continue to strive to continue the strong, mighty, enterprising SME program as a long-term program, okay, and a platform to share more insights with the SMEs and look forward for your support. Tonight marks the first web forum of our one-month financial management series presented by Cofundr, a recognized market operator for P2P crowd financing registered with Security Commission Malaysia. They're offering financing that makes investment sense. Okay, again, finance is something that is I'm not familiar with, but whatever investment that I make, it really need to make the investment sense. It's not only putting in the money like FD, then would it be better or worse for you and so forth. So today I'm also learning in terms of the finance side of it, and we will have the topics on grant, incentive, insurance, premium financing, P2P financing, and more in the coming weeks. So this is a one-month financial management series that we will have the grant, incentive, insurance, premium financing, P2P financing, and more during this whole month of the session at the same time as well. Before we continue, let me remind everyone to mute your mic. And should you have any questions, please write it into the chat box. We will have the Q&A with the participants after our dialogue. Okay, back to our core topic today. Okay, budget 2022, plan ahead, act on it. We really need to plan ahead. Okay, because if not, we would not be able to maximize what has been offered to us, or we might have missed out important points that we might incur more costs to do our business. Now, Budget 2022 Team Keluarga Malaysia, Makmur Sejahtera, a prosperous Malaysia family, which was presented by Finance Minister Tengku Datuk Seri Safro. Okay, the government has allocated a total of 332.1 billion for Budget 2022, the highest value compared to the previous budgets. Government revenue is expected to increase to 234 billion. A total of the 2335 billion is allocated for operating expenditure. I would see that definitely this would be a deficit budget that we spend more than we earn. 75.6 billion it will be spent or allocated for development expenditure, and 23 billion under the COVID-19 fund. Now, some of the key highlights that I found out from the budget is that there will be increases of 22% of year-on-year in 2022 for development expenditure. We're going to spend more already. Government debt will be at the 63.3% of the GDP in 2021. Okay, 63.3%. That is rather high. There is an 100 million grant available for selected technology investment. A total of 14.2 billion of funds to be made available to SMEs. But how does it reach out to SME? We are not so sure. Later on, we will ask the panelists, then we will get a better idea. The Syarikat Jaminan Pembiayaan Perniagaan Berhad, SJPP. Until right now, from the stimulus package and so forth, there are a lot of people, the package that mentioned that got SJPP this, SJPP that. But a lot of the SMEs still do not understand what does this SJPP do and how do we benefit from it, because it has a financing with additional guaranteed limit of 10 billion ringgit over there. It's a lot of money inside there. 30 million will be provided to implement the innovation hub for the fourth industrial revolution. Then another 45 million is allocated for the technology transformation for the fourth industrial revolution as well. How is it different from each other? We are not so sure. So these are some of the key aspects. And last but not least, Of course, it might not be so relevant to the SMEs, but the government plans to introduce a one-off tax, which called a prosperous tax or cukai makmur on high-income companies, companies chargeable income of more than 100 million ringgit. So if you have earned more than 100 million ringgit, there will be a cukai makmur, additional cukai makmur. So budget 2022, what I mentioned is just a glimpse of it. Should we, the business people, okay, I myself is an SME, I deal a lot with SMEs. We business people or SMEs be happy or should we be concerned? For me, I'm quite concerned. Later on we talk about it. What and how should we prepare ourselves for the year 2022? Okay, we need to prepare ourselves, and to do that, today we get more clarity from the panelists, and together with us tonight, we have my co-moderator, Paul Kwan. Paul Kwan is the director and CEO of Cofundr Malaysia. Paul has dedicated his career to the financial institution for a very long time, focusing to those that traditional models that have often overlooked. He was with Hong Leong Bank, ABN AMRO, AT&T, and so forth. We will get to know him much more better because he will be with us for the next 4 weeks. Next will be our tax expert, our Miss Wong Man Yi. Man Yi is the partner of corporate tax of Cofundr Malaysia, who leads the tax audits and investigation team, and co-lead the tax compliance team. She managed the tax compliance affairs of clients, providing tax advisory, corporate tax planning, group tax review, and so forth. Basically, for me, she is the walking tax Bible for me. Okay, so anything about tax, we should actually ask her. Now, last but not least, a very important person over here. Many of you have met him online, offline, whatever. He has been in the scene. Okay, we have our industry big brother. Okay, why is it big brother? It's also because that both of us studied in Sentu. Okay, brotherhood is there. Dato A.T. Kumara Raja, or better known as Dato ATK. We call him as Dato ATK. He's the Treasurer General of National Chamber of Commerce of Industry Malaysia, NCCIM, as well as the Secretary General of Malaysian Association Indian Chambers of Commerce and Industry. So I have to say that this one I have to mention. Why? Because I have to say that he is one of the industry rep from the industry that I respected most. Why is that so? Because I have been, for the past 3 to 4 years, I have been a lot of engagement with the government when I was the National Vice President of the SME Malaysia. I met Dato ATK a lot of times, and very often Dato always there to speak up, and not only speak up. A lot of people we can speak a lot, but whether is there any essence for him? He represents the business community and he speaks with sound facts. Okay, he can remember a lot of facts that I cannot. Okay, that one I salute him. Okay, and justified when we have justified himself when we have a lot of the government engagement. A lot that I have learned from him, and I hope that I can learn more today. Now, let's get today's event started. Now, focus is on the SMEs. A total of 14.2 billion of funds have been made available to SMEs. Now, let's go for overall first, the whole budget. Okay, I would like Dato ATK to let us have your viewpoint in terms of the budget 2022. Is the funds and the incentives reaching the right target group? And is it formulated in the right way? Because right now, the SMEs are having high cost of operation. A lot of people having cash flow problem. Countries don't have enough money. We need to spend more. But it seems like the country does not have a very specific direction. And how can we, the SMEs, be benefiting from this 2022 budget. Can you give your overall opinion and overall view on that? Thank you very much, Dr. ATK.
Thanks, Keng Teck, and thanks for the small introduction just now. Just a quick update. I suppose if you look at the budget in terms of the $332.1 billion, I mean, we keep speaking about the largest and the larger budgets. I suppose size does matter when it comes to budget announcements at some point in time. And I think the discussion, every finance minister tends to say that, I've got the biggest budget. And I'm sure Tengku Zafrul, in the previous life, I suppose he has moved, he's also survived two governments in many ways. So in that earlier government, he did say that he had the largest budget, and now he's actually come back with a larger budget, 332. But the 332.1 must be taken into context. So because we say 332.1, you rightfully said, how much has been allocated for OPEX and CAPEX, and how much has been part of the COVID fund as such. And you did mention about that $14.2 billion, which is repeatedly reminded to us and saying, look, I've put aside 14.2 billion ringgit for the PMKS, or as they say, the Malay abbreviation or the English abbreviation, which is the micro SMEs now, because we have tend to also change some sort of nomenclature after COVID, because for the first time we have used the micros as part of this larger group of people we identify as SMEs. Because I think during COVID, we managed to make that difference between micros and SMEs, and there's a very distinct difference. If I use the way I speak, I suppose sometimes it sounds rude, but you cannot apply Proton and Porsche in the same way. There is a different group for the Proton, there's an entirely different group for the Porsche. Now, that $14.2 billion must be looked at in context of the total $40 billion which they have set for Semarak Niaga. So if you look at the Semarak Niaga program, which encompasses everything from the micro businesses, the Makcik Kia, to the biggest JLCs where they're looking for recapitalization, so or even those listed players. So if it covers the entire spectrum, and in that, this 14.2 out of the $40 billion, which is 36%. So in the context, that 36% kind of though the number, I'm not sure whether the number was taken out from there, but as such, if you look at our GDP contribution towards this 98% of our businesses, which are actually SMEs or micro SMEs together, contribute to about 38%, give or take 38.3, if I remember my numbers right. So that 38.3, 36% of the total $40 billion funding available under Semarak Niaga is for micro and small SMEs. And of that 14.2, $1.8 billion, which is about 12.5% of the 14.2, is kept aside for micros as such. I'm not sure when you say, I think Keng Teck put it very rightfully and said, whether it really reaches out to the target group out there. I suppose two reservations I have. One is, in the positive way, this budget, Tengku Zafrul opened up his budget discussion saying, look, there's something different with the way we have approached his budget. 50,000 proposals that came out from the public themselves. We have written 4 working papers, kertas kerja as they call it, I think. And then we have done many consultative sessions, and then we have engaged about 140 industry organizations. So to me, to some extent, the industry perspective of where we think the budget should head to has been taken into account. But also, what has not really, to my own personal knowledge, what has not really been taken into account is this things like, we keep again saying there's about 1 million SMEs, give or take. The number in SME Association, from where all of us actually have taken this number from, that number of 904,065, and I'm thinking that number is 900,000 plus is what we've been quoting our entire lifetime. But actually, in the post-COVID era, do these companies exist? One. So in that, we also have the minister, then YB Wan Junaidi actually mentioned and says, good, about 30% of these companies are closed for good. So has that number been accounted for? Even if the number is the same, so now I am out and you are in. But I have got 15 years of experience running this restaurant for a while, and now I've closed shop and now I'm out of business. You come into the business with an entirely different business model, maybe now using Grab or Foodpanda as your primary delivery model, or using Cloud Kitchen or whatever that you come in. So you replace one-to-one. But me and you are not the same. Because 15 years of experience and the depth and whatever else that I have a job, you on the other end come with an entirely different lean business model, employing the least number of people, using everything as a OPEX model and very little capital investment. So you and I are not the same. So these target businesses, unfortunately, to me, the supply has changed. The demand has changed on the ground in terms of the businesses, but the supply side, that means the way the fund has been casted or the way the funds have been drawn up, even if you look at this $1.8 billion, even if you look at the micro enterprises, nothing really has changed. They put it towards Agrobank, they put it in BSN, they put it in Cofundr National, which is primarily the conservative financing institutions. And if you look at the SMEs, then they put it under most of the DFIs and also under Bank Negara Malaysia. Nothing there in the document actually says we are looking at it towards as a new funding model. We're not using your 2020, 2021 cash flow, because they say, okay, go and bring back your last 3 years. My last 2 years looks bad because not in business. So how can my credit valuation be the same as the guy who's been in business before? So I think, I mean, the long and short of it is, yes, there is enough funding. It has been put aside, but no, unless the engagement models change, this $14.2 billion to a large extent would not be fully utilized, and the impact on the SMEs will not be enough. I'll give you a simple comparison. If you look at the 20 months of all the economic stimulus packages we have had, $530 billion, $89 billion of that actually cash injection under 8 economic stimulus packages, the total funding given out to all SMEs and micro together is about $12.5 billion, about 38,000 companies have given out. If you don't look at the latest Laksana report, that's what it says. So 20 months, we have only been able to give out about $12.5 billion. In 2022, we are hoping to give out $14.2 billion on that same logic. May not meet those numbers. This is my little experience I've got. Now, I think you're muted.
Keng Teck, you're on.
You're muted. Keng Teck, you're muted.
Sorry. For me, is that there are a lot of money around, allocation of billion of ringgits, but how many of us, the SMEs, have actually received the fund? Have actually able to get the funds into our hand? That is the question to ask. But before we discuss about all these issues, let us move towards the a little bit on the tax aspect. Okay, for this budget 2020, there are several tax initiatives that have been introduced, several policies that have been introduced, and some of them might be good for us. Like for example, for me is that, okay, last month on the 11th month, I can actually change my the reporting of my expected tax declaration and so forth. But there are many more. From what I understand from Mani, is that there are some of the tax policy that we need to be very careful. Let us hear from Mani on what does she have to say about the tax aspect of the budget 2020.
Okay. So I think according to the research, the pandemic has widened the gap between businesses. Certain businesses are really facing severe financial hardships, revenue dry up, and overhead expenses continue to accumulate. For example, like those tourism industry, hotel, event organizer. But certain businesses, they are making extraordinary profits. So for example, like healthcare related, supplements related industry, IT driven company, oil and gas, because of the increase of the oil price, the palm oil plantations company. So there are certain companies that are gaining from these extraordinary economic environment. So in terms of the tax measures, we can see that the allocations has been segregated into 2 baskets. So the first bucket is to ease the doing business for those impacted businesses. And the second type of the allocations could be able to help to drive or encourage strategic investment in selected sectors. So for example, like ease of doing businesses, just say for MSME, micro SMEs. So the deferments of the corporate income tax payments for 6 months until 30th of June 2022. That will be helpful, and it will help the cash flow for all the SMEs. Then the second ease of the doing business could be like extending the special deductions for the landlords who are extending the rental discount of more than 30% given to the tenants. And the third one, like quite a lot of companies are making losses during this pandemic. Previously, these utilizations of the unabsorbed business loss is being restricted to 7 years, and now it is being extended to 10 years. So that could be helpful, and some companies may take longer time for recovery. So this will help the SME from that extent. So in terms of driving certain economic or spurring the economic towards the recovery, where we can see some measures like the present tax rebates of the 20,000 for 3 consecutive years for establishing a new SME. That means if you want to set up a new company, you are entitled for a tax rebate of 20,000 for 3 years of assessment. That will be ending on 31st December 2021, will be extended for another year if the MSME performing the business activities through online platform. So this is quite a good measure, and it will spur the economic. And then they also extended the special reinvestment allowance for those qualifying projects. If a company that would like to undertake those expansions, automations, modernizations, or diversifications projects, then you could be entitled a tax incentive called reinvestment allowance for another 2 years. That is for 2023 and 2024. So with that, we hope to see some economic spillover effects over all the supply chain. And then the third items like the special deductions for the renovations and refurbishment expenses for the businesses, that is limited to 300,000. This is a special deductions and also being extended as well until end of 2022. So we can see that these are the few key measures that could be able to reach those targeted groups of people that our government would like to help.
Yeah, thank you, Manji. There are a lot of it that you mentioned, but something that I caught from it is that there are some of the reinvestment allowance for special projects and so forth. But the thing is that for us SMEs is that what project constitute a special project or allowable project? What is the nature of the project that we can actually get the reinvestment allowance? And then right now is that Malaysia is definitely going through the digital transformation age. Okay, just now I mentioned that there are 4 IR blueprint already, and the government is encouraging a lot of the companies going for the e-commerce. But then e-commerce, digitalizing your operations and marketing and so forth. But so how where is this money? I want to digitalize my my business, my operation, my automation, my marketing aspect and so forth. Where is the money specifically? Is it really the allocation as a loan or as a grant or as an incentive? What it is? Maybe with this Dato', you can actually spell out a few key of the incentive with the digital transformation that really reaches the SME's hand.
Okay, right. You know, I mean, it's quite an interesting thing, right? So if you see how urgent or how much our government is actually looking at in terms of this digital transformation story, some of those things that they have said, like the PEDI, Pusat Economic Digital Initiatives, which is there, yes, over the weekend, PM launched it in a place called Kampung Durian Tawa, if I'm not mistaken, in Perak. Most of us probably won't even know where it is on the map of Pahang, but it's somewhere in Perak, which is his constituency. Where the very first time this name even appears is actually in the 2022 budget. But they have already launched the first center, and the idea is to have 50 or what they call 222 in every constituency to have this rural digital economic space, which is infrastructure, available in 222 constituencies. And there, I think every year they're going to give out 50,000 ringgit to at least hopefully train about 1,000 micro SMEs to be able to participate into the digital economy using a committee which is set up in that constituency. When I say constituency, the parliamentary constituency, for them to be able to drive this digital economic story forward. So if you look at it purely from that perspective, I think some initiatives is being done to bridge the rural-urban divide. And if you again see in that same document, there is a mention of 40 existing PPR in urban areas, which is, again, I suppose if you look at it from an urban poverty perspective, is to allow this ecosystem to thrive. And I suppose it is not only looking at digital marketing or skills or something that the local people, local community can share, but also sometimes some sort of access, some sort of a platform in the market itself that is being created to allow this community to participate in the larger transformation that is happening in digital space. Obviously, one of the better things that has happened as far as this pandemic is concerned is actually the digital acceleration. What I wanted to do in 5 years, I've done in 5 months. But the problem is here. What I wanted to do in 5 years is not because I don't know the urgency, I don't know the need to go digital. But the problem is I only can allocate that much of funds. While technology has become quite a commoditized thing and technology has become accessible to some extent, but not all businesses can afford that. So over a period of time, I may have want to digitalize my business. Now, I have to do this now in 5 months or I die. So the differentiate or die story, the problem is if I had enough funds under my desk, then I can take it out and say, okay, now what I want to do now, I do now. But the problem is, what if I had gone and invested in things hoping that 2020 would be a big bang year for, say, example, if I was in the tourism industry and hoping $100 billion receipts, tourism receipts, that's what the country was aiming for, 30 million tourists. We probably have 3 flights came into the country, that also from Wuhan to help us with the early phase of COVID vaccination, right? So that's where the mismatch will be. So government, I suppose they have come out with pretty well. I think they've done well in terms of the, at least on paper, infrastructure. So they continue to invest in all the digital infrastructure, including acceleration of the Jendela program, which is the infrastructure provision. Infrastructure in terms of looking at what MDEC is basically trying to lead in putting in together a digital module, hoping that many of these e-Usahawan will be able to participate. Mind you, e-Usahawan is a very preliminary kindergarten step, good step, but may not take the SMEs to that leapfrog that we are expecting. 3, they worked in some incentives on a grant basis, so that 5,000 grant, the SME digitalization grant, that one-to-one grant, is a good thing for many of the micro businesses to start, or even the smaller of the SMEs to probably start their digitalization. One thing that I suppose we also have to probably agree, there are businesses that cannot go. I read a McKinsey report over the weekend, which simply says only 52% of even developed economies are able to digitalize their retail business, which is about half. Which means that even in a developed economy, retail businesses, you cannot digitalize everything. 52% only you can digitalize. So what more than in Malaysia? For an example, I think I gave an interview to Bernama recently and said, look, as much as we are professing 5G and the fact that, we can download HD quality videos within seconds. Yes, maybe if I'm sitting smack middle of KLCC, I can do that. But try traveling, which I did over the weekend between KL to Penang. After Ipoh, I have to make that call 7 times. By the time I reach Seberang, 7 times the call drop, pick up, call drop, pick up. 7 times I had to do it. So on the main highway, the national, what you call trunk, and I cannot get even 3G connection on my phone. Forget about 5G. So in that way, infrastructure, yes, infrastructure, which is basically the ecosystem. Institution, MDEC is leading it pretty good. Incentives have been built in. But I think in terms of impact, yet to be seen. So government, yes, they have taken it, but mind you, only those SMEs that are enabled can do it. Because the priority as far as an SME, I'm not sure if it's an MNC you're working for, maybe money can, tax guys lah, whether I make money or don't make money, they make money wrong. So when they make money, they can talk about digitalization. For me, survival more important. If I can get more from Perkeso to keep my staff, more important. So that is more important than investment in digital. While I understand, but my problem is surviving is important as opposed to thriving. If 2022 is a non-COVID year, that fourth wave, fifth wave, and stop counting, whatever number of waves, if that wave doesn't come, I hope to at least timbul. If not, I tenggelam. If I timbul 2022, 2023, we can talk about higher investment. So 2022 is a test case, threshold. If I break that threshold, yes. If not, game over. For many, already 30% of SMEs close shop. We know it, right? 800,000 plus out of a job. So I suppose that's why the digitalization, not highest priority, but a good effort.
Yeah, but the thing is that, Dato, you see, what you have mentioned just now, the infrastructure, whatever things, for me, it's not new anymore. Government has always been able to formulate great strategy. Okay, they have able to allocate a lot of the programs to bridge the gap between the rural and the urban, the manual with the automation, okay, the rich and the poor and so forth. They always have a lot of policy of doing it. And we have been doing this year by year basis, but yet we don't see the results. The money has been allocated, like just now you mentioned, okay, a lot of money has been allocated. How much has been dispersed? Okay, no matter how much you can allocate, but you are not giving it out, there's no point. It's not reaching us, and the SMEs cannot sustain. If they cannot sustain for the next few months, not to mention, I can start up an e-commerce shop, but I need more money to actually grow, to do marketing, to get my stocks and so forth digitalized. It's not only putting up my store online. Now, this kind of money, we need more operational working capital. Now, maybe Paul over there, Paul, you are in P2P financing. Later on, you might want to help me. You are more a finance guy than me, okay? You might want to ask more of the help me with the finance questions. But in terms of the lending, okay, because a lot of the SMEs right now, as what Dato mentioned, last 2 years, my business is not good. Okay, my business is not good, and I want to go to the bank and get some loan, especially the hospitality industry. Okay, that would be the last sector that the bank will give you money. Okay, and I have a building, I have some insurance to pay for, I have something to pay for. If not, I would definitely be shutting it down. So how can I sustain? What are the P2P financing, alternative financing that you think that right now, in terms of the budget or what is available right now for the SMEs and the micro SMEs that can leverage on?
Good question, King Tek. Thank you. Okay, I think the P2P financing platform has always been positioned as an alternative financier for micro SMEs that are, you're not big enough to go to the banks, or you don't have the track record to go to the bank. That's where the P2P financier comes into play. That there's a lot of SMEs out there that need funds, like you clearly highlighted. But raising funds today, like you say, if you're in the hospitality business, to go and get financing, the bank's going to shut the door on you. But for us, we can do that. We have come up with a special financing package specifically for hotels in regards to the procurement of their insurance. Times are bad, but they still need to insure their building. It's still public liability, fire insurance. You still need to pay for it, but your cash flow is tight. So we have actually come up with a program where we can actually finance your purchase of your insurance. So that's at least one step forward. Then from there, we can slowly build on that to supplement it with more working capital facility. The Securities Commission back in 2016, I think they have highlighted this as a problem before, because we saw that there was an $80 billion gap in funding for the micro, small, and medium enterprises. So that's why they introduced P2P financing as well as equity crowdfunding under a regulated framework, just to promote the financial inclusion for these businesses. With regards to the budget that Mani has highlighted just now, what the Malaysian government has done is that they created this Malaysian Co-Investment Fund to support the P2P industry as well as the equity crowdfunding. So what that means is that when we raise money for the SMEs, every campaign that we host, the government will actually co-invest together with the crowd to support the SMEs. So this program was started in 2019, and actually it is being this year they've actually increased the budget allocated for the MySafe program from 50 million to 80 million. So that in itself is something that would impact the SME, because if you look at the past record as of end of last year, more than 5,000 successful campaigns were co-invested by the government. This impacted about 1,500 SMEs out there. So these are the little things that I think that directly impacts the micro, small and medium enterprises.
Okay, cool. Now, there are a lot of things that we are not politicians over here. We are just industry business people who just need to earn some money for us to have 3 meals a day. Okay, we are SMEs, very tough. Now, there are a lot of the tax incentive that just now Mani has mentioned just now. But the thing is that a lot of the SMEs, okay, I'm sorry, Mani, because not every of the SMEs would be able to afford professional services like Cofundr Malaysia. Okay, as much as I wanted to do that, but a lot of the SMEs, number one, the knowledge of it is low, the planning is poor. We try to understand, but still there are some misconceptions here and there. Now, can you advise? Just now you mentioned there were some few incentive of the tax incentive. Now, SME always, I have to say, those SMEs that are here today, don't scold me or punch up my tire, but this is the real case that we are not as prepared as the MNCs or the mid-tier companies. A lot of times when we do things is ad hoc basis, a lack of proper planning. Now, let's ditch that. Right now, after COVID, we know that we cannot keep doing business like that. We need to plan ahead. That's why the topic today is plan ahead, act on it. Okay. Now, Mani, what kind of preparation that we, the SMEs, would really need to look at and prepare ourselves to benefit some of the incentive that you mentioned just now?
Okay, I think other than benefiting of the incentive, like just now I have talked about the deferments of the monthly installments where you need to apply for, that's quite straightforward on that. But I just want to tap a little bit on these digital transformations before we talk about the benefits from the tax measures. So I think just now Dato also mentions that our government has already introduced various incentives to encourage the investment in technologies, like giving certain tax incentive for the digital infrastructure provider, lower tax rate to the digital technology provider, where we may not be able to see the impact immediately, especially for the MSME. But we also need to take note on certain actions taken by the governments. For example, like expanding the tax base. Our government is also riding the wave on digital transformations. So how our government, what are the measures that our government has announced in terms of expanding the tax base? Like the sales tax coverage has been expanded on the low value of goods. The goods are of those total value not exceeding 500 ringgit per consignment. So for example, in the future, when we order any goods, low value goods from the overseas, from online vendor, which are delivered by A, will be subject to sales tax in the future moving forward. And then we all know that the sales tax are being imposed or being collected by manufacturer, by manufacturing company. For these low value goods, it's also applicable to the local trader. That means or the local trader or the foreign seller who sell low value goods to Malaysian customers, they are required to register and impose sales tax on the sales of the low value goods in the future. So the government also tapping on that. So and then one more thing is from our observation.
Hold on. When you say that they are tapping on the lower end of the traders, meaning that, let's say, for example, in Malaysia right now, there are a lot of people doing e-commerce businesses that they got some of them they buy things from overseas, then they resell things to the local people, or they buy some things from the cottage market from kampong and sell it to the city. They need to actually incur that tax, or they need to charge the tax to the consumer.
So you need to look into what are the definitions of the low value goods. This is the first thing. And then the local trader, this is something new that usually the sales tax is being imposed and being collected or registered by all the manufacturing company. Now it's being extended to the trader. So we are still waiting for what are the guidelines, what are the conditions, and how it will affect our community on that part. And then from our observations, we also can see that the government has tightened various enforcement and the administrations relating to technology adoptions as well. So for example, the Inland Revenue Board has recently revised the guideline on taxing digital economy, and then they also has expanding the definitions of royalty for withholding tax payment, because when we make a payment to a non-resident, just give you a very simple example, like most of the companies also need to do digital advertising, especially during the pandemic. If you make any
advertising, for example.
Correct. If you make payments to Google, because Google is a non-resident, then you may need to comply with the withholding tax when you make payments to them. So the withholding tax is supposed to be a tax on the non-residents. So this is a direct tax impact. Then on the indirect tax, so if you are a company, then you are buying a local advertising services from a local supplier will charge you with the 6% service tax. So by applying the same playing field, so our government also mentions that for the digital service tax has been introduced for the foreign service provider. So the foreign service provider like Google, Netflix, Spotify could be charging the 6% service tax to you if you are using their services. Then if those foreign vendor is not charging the digital service tax to you, you are as an SME, as a businessman, so you could need to apply the imported service tax on top of, this is on top of the withholding tax. So withholding tax is one of the payments that you pay to income tax. Imported service tax is another payment that you need to pay to customs on the payments. So in terms of technology adoptions, a lot of people, a lot of businesses may not aware of this kind of compliance. These are the compliance costs when you go for the technology adoptions that you need to be aware of.
Yeah, I think I can comprehend that, because we are into branding and marketing, and there was once that we help our clients to buy some Facebook and Google ads on behalf of them. And for us, because they are our long-term clients, so we just charge them a very minimum service fee on top of the advertising fee. And then we just charge them like that. And later on, at the end of the year, when we want to submit our accounts, our auditor and accountant says, hey, you need to actually make provision or make payment for the service, withholding tax and digital tax. I said, so who is going to pay? Someone got to pay the government, but Facebook and Google definitely not going to pay the government. Then who's going to pay? You're going to pay, King Tay. Your company actually subscribe to a service. You need to pay the government. That meaning that I made losses because I only charge a mere 5%. I need to pay 10% tax. So these are the things that we do not know, and we do not know how to prepare for it. This is an example. Now, before we continue on these several issues, later on, what I wanted to talk about is more towards the later on in terms of the receiving the money from the government. How can we receive more money from the government? But before that, let's have a video. From Cofundr talking a little bit about the P2P financing and insurance financing first. Thank you very much.
In the era where decision-making and order fulfillment is constantly shortened, insurance is critical to manage risk of disruption. Insurance, when it works as intended, provides ease of mind in the form of financial protection. With relatively small premium, you can get protected against large losses. COVID-19 is boosting innovation in a very positive manner in all segments of the industry, including the insurance industry, especially when it comes to accessibility of insurance. So now we have taken a significant step to protect your business with insurance coverage in case of unforeseen risks affecting your business. But the cost of multiple policies might hurt your cash flow. What if there's a way to simplify your insurance repayment by making it into more palatable monthly repayments? With Cofundr Insurance Premium Financing, now you can. Because we allow you to spread your cost of premium into equal monthly repayments. By doing so, you're able to free up your cash flow, hence paving the way for urgent operational expenses or business growth. At the same time, you're also ensured that your coverage is in place and your protection remains uninterrupted. So how does this work? Cofundr helps you pay for your policies upfront. And then you just simply pay Cofundr back over equal monthly installment. There's no additional security that's required other than just your insurance policy.
Oh, actually, it's timely for the market now in the current situation. And basically, I think, if I'm not mistaken, it's worldwide. It's available worldwide. And the way I look at it, that will give an options to the consumer or to the corporates to purchase, to still can afford to purchase the insurance premium, the insurance cover, without jeopardizing their cover. You know, so I think to me, it also add greater value to the, as far as the insurance industry is concerned.
Now, insurance is one of the things that we always neglected. Okay, but we are not talking about it today. We have some other sessions to talk about it. But right now is that I'm a very practical person. As an SME, I'm a very practical person. The money need to come to my pocket. It will need to be reducing my expenses, and I can sustain my business to grow. Now, Dato, I really need to ask you this question. I think that I asked you many times already now. Cost of doing business is ever increasing, okay? There are shortage of foreign laborers right now, okay? Even the hospitality industry has come out with the press release that says that even the locals doesn't want to work in this hospitality industry. Those who have actually resigned, they do not want to come back. They would rather go to do e-commerce because government giving them a lot of money to do e-commerce and start up on their own. Okay, and the need for automation, the need for the talent development. Now, the thing is that let's talk about specific. Let's go to specific. Those that we cannot control, meaning that government policies that we cannot control. Let's not talk so much about it. Let's talk about what we can do. Exactly what we can do, where can we go to actually get some subsidy, grant, incentive, and so forth to actually reduce our cost of operation. Dato.
Keng Teck, I mean, while just now you're speaking, I did go through some of those questions, right? So if you look in the chat group, a lot of people have actually asked a few things, and I suppose nothing said here is a very new thing, simply because these problems were there before pandemic, or what I call now BC. Yes. We refer to BC those days is 2000 years ago, but now BC is before COVID, and now also. So the issues are the same. There is no difference between the guy who suffered in 2019 and the guy who's still suffering in 2021, including me and you. So yes. That's what I kept mentioning just now, right? So the access to the banks. The banks have not really changed the way they've looked at it. So I see one gentleman, Chris, who's now the most popular gentleman in the chat group, who nearly everybody supports. I completely sympathize with him. And I also can empathize with them, because the banks have not really changed the way they look at how they evaluate your credit, how they evaluate your cash flow, how your ability to pay, and despite whatever said and done. So just now we spoke about, I think, was it Mani or somebody who mentioned in terms of the hospitality industry, the tourism industry. So if you look at one of the industries that has taken specific mention in the budget, tourism industry, for example, $1.6 billion, 7 different initiatives, including the wage subsidy program and everything else, including what they call the Penjana Tourism Fund. I'll give you a simple example, right? So just now you mentioned what is it that we can do? Because we are not the government. We can't change policies. We only can adopt to programs. To me, I give you an example of, just now I give you an example of how much has come down, 12.5 billion in all the economic stimulus packages. You take Penjana Tourism Fund, which is one of those things which I said the tourism industry players can avail of. 600, actually 1 billion in the beginning, then brought down to 600 million. 600 million, only 600 applications, about 300 passed. Only about 62 million ringgit has been given out, which means 50% approval rate, 11% disbursement rate. In an industry that has got the highest multiplier effect in the whole of the economy, third largest contributor to the GDP, and has highest multiplier effect. If somebody says government invests a ringgit, you get 4 ringgit in terms of impact, but still tourism industry disbursement as far as government grants is concerned, Penjana Tourism Fund only 11%. Where is the problem? Again, complete mismatch in supply and demand. Stone age policies trying to address new age business models doesn't work. So that's why people like Chris and me and you are suffering this. So one way is, while we keep reminding, and that's what the role of institutions, SME Association and all of us, right? So the chambers, and that's something that we keep, probing the government, pushing them as much as we ask to change policies. One on the other hand, we must also understand where we are in terms of evolution of our business and that forward planning. Yes, most of us get stuck for cash flow, all of us in the same boat, same storm, different boat. But what we maybe have to take cognizance of the fact that, look, we cannot change the world, but maybe we can change ourselves. So either we adopt newer business models, newer partnerships. So again, I think that's where the co-funder policy of this co-investing and even P2P financing and all that comes into play. Most of us are still very conventional in our thinking, right? So we still want to go for debt financing. We still want to go and say, look, I still want to borrow. The biggest illogic would be to take money to fund for working capital. It's just it's so mismatched in the way we do business, right? So that is like near along based approach. So why not we look at other things like peer-to-peer financing, equity crowdfunding, even in terms of equity financing and even partnership models. Many of these things, I suppose we have to agree that we have to reset some of our businesses. What is really gone, you cannot help. We must be able to say, press the escape button, because livelihood more important. Life and livelihood coexist. So to me, I think we have to change our approach to the government. Again, there is no best policy. I think most of us have not had successes, but those who have had successes been the guy who's actually the last standing. So the guy who's fought it all the while, they ask you 10 times, never mind, you go and give it 10 times because they keep asking you. But the minute you stop at the 9th time, you will not then progress further, right? So they ask you 10 times for the same document which you send 10 times over the email, never mind, go and give, because that's the government. If they were any more efficient, it would be the private sector. So let's face it, their government, actually they're not bad guys, but they again have their own policies and programs and the bosses and KPIs, don't know what is it that they subscribe to, right? So it's an entirely different religion that works there in the government, right? Whereas in the private sector, we use hiring and firing power. We don't like the fly in the morning, we fire him and then hope that he doesn't end up in the industrial court. So we have to adopt to something that the government wants. One is either then we have to also change our business models, go lean, go low on the capital models. Just now we did mention some of the incentives, for example, are something which may not be applicable to us. 30% reduction in rental rates, unless I have benefited from it and my landlord is such a nice guy, knowing that very well if he kicks me out, he cannot get another replacement, would probably agree to it. But if he's already got a new filler waiting to come into my strategically placed retail shop, then it's just a matter of time I get kicked out, right? So then we cannot go and argue on a social basis. Because this is unfortunately a dog-eat-dog world kind of thing. So it's commercial. let's agree that we'll have to change our debt financing concepts. Go look at what people like Cofundr is doing in terms of looking at newer business models, newer funding models, and then park onto that. And I suppose, again, very hard to give a very generic answer, but then again, what industry you are in, how much evolved are you in the business, and how much is your what do you call reserves and capacity, which is basically determine which agency you go to, whether you go to the SJPPs of the world, which is basically for the big boys, or whether you go to Tekun National, which is not talking about more than 100,000, that too not in the first application. But where you go to is determined by where you are, so that assist and to be must be determined by the individual businesses themselves. But again, I hope government also listens to many of the things that the industry has been saying for a while, and even chambers of commerce. I'll give you one example where there's where the small guy is not helped, but the big guy is helped. If you look at the budget discussion, Tengku Zafrul mentions about a $3 billion fund that Khazanah is leading to recapitalize businesses that have been affected by COVID in Bursa Malaysia. Same logic, SME Association and everybody else, NCCIM, all of us have been asking and says, create this Dana Jamin type of model, which was very successful 12 years ago in 1998, 97, 98. Yep. Same thing for the SMEs, which is some sort of a co-funding where debt is picked up by the government. If they could do it for Dana Jamin 2007, 2008, where the government stepped up with $12 billion, why not now? That time the banks were in trouble. Now the Rakyat is in trouble, which is the bank's customer. If the customer is in trouble, the bank anyway cannot survive too long. It's just a matter of time people go to the streets. So why not government step up? But government has stepped up, but to me, the government has stepped up for the T20. That means to the Bursa company. Bursa company anyway can go to the capital markets to raise funds. Which market I go to? My own market I cannot go to because it's too expensive. So there is that mismatch, Keng Tek. And I hope that many of us, including us, and then the way businesses are run, the way we capture some of the documents. So again, these are all learning curve, like you said just now, the withholding tax, right? So you learn that bad news at the end of your financial year. Yeah. I can tell you one simple, I don't know whether Chris has actually, I applied for a loan for my wife. And then the bank says, we can give you and all that. So I showed them a few income. And then they say, because your wife is a doctor, only income earned from the medical business or medical services that she does as a doctor can be recognized. Consultation coming from this, coming from that, and all that cannot be recognized for her income. So, it becomes uncollateralized though. So in many ways, I suppose now this is learning curve for us, right? So end of the day, how do we structure ourselves in the next future so that in 2022, at least I can reapply for that same facility, hopefully with a different outcome, right? So I think we have to look at how the government has structured that product and try to match us. Government not going to change, unfortunately, whichever government, let's face it, all governments are the same.
How can you say government not going to change? Government is changing every time. So I think the government changes all the time.
We change so fast, we don't even know what, they don't even know what they're doing. Now we have to change ourselves to hopefully find a middle ground. And that's my, I think me and you in this case, the same, like we are optimists, yes, hoping that the clouds will pass and we will, we can still sail further.
Correct. That's why that I always say is that we cannot always depend on the government. Okay. We, the SMEs, we need to actually put our effort, put our energy into what we can do, what we can influence. Last time, I think that I learned from Hong Leong Bank. That time I went for this Stephen Covey's this is a training. So they say that there's this circle of concern and circle of influence. A lot of times we put a lot of our energy into the circle of concern. Wow, why the politics like that? Why the government do this? Why the government do that? Which, you don't even come out to vote. Okay, what you can actually do is that what you can influence, what you can do by yourself to change the way that we do business. Okay, what can we do? Now, this one I want to ask Manyi again. Now, is there any good lesson that you can share with the SMEs over here that they have done something wrong on the tax planning or tax submission and so forth, that they will have to incur a lot of extra cost to their business? Is this something that SMEs should avoid, that very common mistake that SME does that they should avoid?
Yes, I think that this is quite a interesting and very tough question. and, I think we all know that tax compliance could be the key moving forward, but the tax compliance can be very costly as well. Now, when we talk about the tax compliance, is no longer just filling up a form, submitting a form by analyzing the income and analyzing the deductibility of the expenses. We need to take a wider look on it. For example, have the company comply with all the transfer pricing rules in respect of the related party transactions. The transfer pricing documentation is mandatory. So have you complied with the withholding tax? Like, what's the lessons that you have learned? Then all the indirect taxes as well, the imported service tax, all those things. Then we still have the employer obligations. Then how to complete your Form EA correctly, Form E correctly. All these are also another compliance cost. And then we also noted that the government has tightened the tax administrations recently through a few measures, like introductions of the TIN number, tax identifications number for all the individuals above 18 years old and above, and every companies that has been registered. Then they also talk about the tax compliance certificate is mandatory, is prerequisite if you would like to tender for the government projects. So can you imagine that if, let's say, you are companies that are under tax audit or investigation, then this tax dispute may not be lead to an amicable outcome. Then the IRB raise a provisional assessment, and then this additional tax payable may become outstanding tax liability as shown in your tax compliance certificates. Then how are you going to deal with it? How are you going to proceed with the government tender? All this may have certain impact on the individuals or on the company. So we also can see that the IRB has the power to call for bank account information. That is quite a big impact as well. So and then we also can see the IRB has also announced the measures like the notifications on the change of address in a prescribed form. So the IRB will follow you wherever you go. So you may not be escape from them. So they will have a better picture, better profile on every taxpayers.
Wow. Okay, can I go back to employment? I really like to go back to employment right now. Going back to employment, the government will give us some subsidies and so forth, and we do not need to think of it. Being an SME is really tough life over here. Now, I just have a last question over here before we go to the question and answer. We would ask the participants to raise their questions. So please prepare with your questions right now. Put down the questions, specifically who do you want to ask. Put down your questions in the chat box. I will read it out, and then we will discuss about it. While you are putting in your questions in the chat box, let me ask you this. Okay, all of you, three. I'm not a finance person, but there is this prosperous tax. Okay, the cukai kemakmuran. Okay, cukai kemakmuran. It seems that if you have the earnings of more than 100 million, you will be subject to this prosperous tax. But this prosperous tax, well, it doesn't affect the SMEs. It only affects the big companies. But I have a different viewpoint, that because we are in an economy that is within the whole value chain, the whole ecosystem. Okay, when the big boys are affected, and the big boys, who do they buy from? Who do they get their services from? Who do they sell to? Okay, it's still the smaller guys as well. So right now, maybe Mani, you want to tell us what is this cukai kemakmuran? Then after that, Paul and Dato', you might wanted to comment. Would it or would it not affect us as the SMEs? Mani first. Mani, you're muted. Yeah.
Can you see my screen here? So
yes.
Okay. I think just now we talked about the biggest budgets, all these things, and then the fiscal spending eventually need to back by improving revenue collections, and we all need to pay for it. We need to see where is the source of the revenue that is coming from. So we also can see that the government is formulating a revenue framework that is called medium-term revenue strategies, with the aim to boost revenue, to reduce tax leakages, and then to ensure the stable revenue generations as well. So income tax eventually is still the major contributor, more than 50% of the government's revenue. So when we look into the tax measures, so we have considered quite a few measures, like reinstatements of GST eventually didn't come in, introductions of the capital gain tax is not there, inheritance tax, luxury tax was not being announced as well. So instead of the windfall tax that is being that could be affected selected sectors only, our government has announced Cukai Makmur that will affect most of the large corporations, because for the non-SME could be paying income tax at 24%, and then if a company that's earned chargeable income exceeding 100 million, then the excess will be taxed at 33%. That means effectively an additional 9% tax to be paid on the excess of the 100 million. So it appears that it only affects the large corporations, but like King Tex say, eventually the large corporation could be selling certain goods to the end user, the consumer still need to pay for it eventually. So there could be affecting. So when we look into the government measures, so government is looking to expanding of the tax space. So Cukai Makmur is one of tax that could give a short-term revenue to the government, because that's only affect the YA 2022. What other measures that our government has announced to expand the tax base? So the foreign source income, the first bullet point that you can see, that could be a hot topic right now, because all the Malaysian tax residents will be taxed on the income derived from foreign source that is received in Malaysia with effective from 1st January 2022. So all the Malaysian tax residents, that means talk about individuals and companies and businesses, so they will be subject to tax on foreign source income after 1st January 2022. This is really a very big impact. Then we also talk about the second bullet point, where you can see that withholding tax on the payments to agents, dealers, distributors. This is one of the measures to tighten or to reduce the tax leakages. So there have certain announcements. That means there are certain you must fulfill certain requirements. So for example, like companies like Amway, Causeway, they have a lot of agents. So if the agents receive more than 100,000 from the same company last year, when the company, that means Amway, to make a payments to this resident individual, then Amway will deduct 2% withholding tax from the payments and remit to the IRB. So you can see that each and every businesses could be like a collections agents on behalf of government, on behalf of IRB. You deduct the tax upfront and pay to the government first. Then from the individual's perspective, how is the implications could be? So on one hand, I'm running a business, so I could be paying the bi-monthly installments. Then when I receive this commission, agency fee, distribution fee, I would be subject to another 2% withholding tax as well. Then this will affect my cash flow very, very much. So this will affect a very, very great impact on the economic, and then it's also put the businesses on onerous responsibility. So what are the consequences of non-compliance with this withholding tax? So the company or the businesses would be subject to 10% late payment penalty for the withholding tax. Then on top of that, the expenses that you incurred, that means the commissions, the agency fee that you pay, would not be eligible for tax deductions. So that is another painful point for the businesses as well. So you also can see the last bullet point to talk about the stamp duty. I think we all talk about the activeness of the stock market since pandemic. So the government has tried to consider about capital gain tax, but eventually they have changed it to this increase of the stamp duty rate from 0.1% to 0.15% and removal of the cap of 200 ringgit. That means government is taking a share on each and every transactions that take place in the share market. So this is also another way to expand the tax base of the government. You are
it's very, very scary to me. It's very, very scary to me. The more that you say, it's very scary to me. Okay, there's too many taxes that we need to do on behalf of the government. And then we also need to pay tax. We also need to help the government to collect tax. How are we going to have the time to do business over here? Now, back to, there are some questions on the tax side. Later on, we will ask you, Manji. But right now, let's go to, go to Paul's side. What do you think about the prosperous tax, the cukai kepamoraan? Would it affect us as the SME? What's your point of view?
King Teck, I'm not an expert on this, but my opinion is that I think the SMEs will be impacted along with the consumers, like what Manji mentioned. As a big company that makes above 100 million and I have to pay additional tax, I will squeeze the margins. If the SME are supplying to me, I'll be squeezing their margins. You know, if I'm selling out to the market to the end user, I'll probably increase or transfer the cost to the end user. That's what I think it will be the outcome of this. But I wanted to just go back to what Datuk mentioned earlier a bit about how banks are, you know, very traditional. They're still sticking to the way that they used to do business. I think you and I understand, King Teck, we used to work in the same bank, and you know, we know when times are tough, the policy come down is that, you know, we stop lending to this sector, we monitor all the, you know, tighten up credit and monitor collections, so on and so forth. So it's exactly this reason why we move out from the bank and go into alternative financing, such as this P2P. So I'm not sure if I also read through the questions, and I see I can empathize with some of the comments that were made, like they've been trying to get financing but been turned down by the bank for multiple times, even though they have, you know, a purchase order in hand or contract in hand, so on and so forth. So I encourage you, if you're in that position, to consider alternative financing, either through Cofundr or any other P2P platform. Because what we do is, I mean, from the credit perspective, we look at your credit, no doubt. We look at your historical, your current standing and everything. But the focus is always on your repayment capability, more on the forward or the future versus your historical. So you may not have the 3-year track record or, you know, a lot of assets to pledge. But what we do is we look at, okay, from this point onwards, if, you know, you raise X amount of money to do this and that, you know, what kind of throughput can you get and how can you recover us? Repay us. So it's a little bit different from how the bank would assess the credit. We're looking more like an investment. So looking at your future potential of repayment.
I have a request here, Paul. I have a request here. Since you're the expert in this, is Cofundr able to offer some kind of the credit or finance health check for the SMEs so that they know where are they right now, whether they are capable of lending or not, so forth? Are you able to offer that to the, maybe not all, maybe to the participants over here?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, as a you know, a special offer, or not offer, but then as a token, or as you know, we understand, we empathize with the SMEs out there. So what we can do is we can, if we can give you a credit evaluation or a credit report of where you are today in terms of your credit, and if possible, can you get additional facility? You know, particularly from Cofundr, of course, but then from other platforms, you can also check them out. But
need to pay a lot.
No, we will do this on a complimentary basis. This is worth up to at least $1,000.
That's the most important question that I need to represent the SMEs to ask you.
No, it's entirely complimentary, because we understand and we empathize, and you know, sometimes it's very difficult for the SMEs. It's been, I mean, we come across a lot of clients. They come and they tell us the same story. It's always at the end it's disappointment because they're not able to get that facility that they need. So in our case, it's slightly different, okay? We don't have the balance sheet to lend you the money. Well, what we do is we connect you to thousands of individual investors, to corporate investors, to institutional investors. So it's all boils down to the story. What story do you have? What's your story?
Okay.
What's your business all about? How can we position your story and make it interesting for the investors? And they will actually invest into the financing.
Paul, then let's have a special session on the next 1 or 2 weeks on that. Then we focus on that. Right now, I hope that Dato' ADK can give you the point of view, a very critical view from you. Don't be too polite, okay? Your honest viewpoint in terms of whether this cukai kemakmuran will affect the SMEs or not.
Okay, this is my view, right? So if you look at cukai makmuran, right? So while money mentions that yes, in 2022, yes, if you're doing more than $100 million and all that, while it may sound what do you call a zero-sum game in the sense that it's mutually exclusive, right? What happens there doesn't translate here. Not so much, right? So if you look at how government has also said the budget itself, they've said, I'm going to ask the GLCs to memperkasakan PMKS. For that, I put aside 5 billion ringgit. And then a Khazanah-led initiative to look at, again, helping out SMEs, another 6 billion ringgit. So if you look at that 14.2 that just now we spoke about, another 11 billion ringgit is given to these big companies, GLCs, to memperkasakan SMEs. So that by sheer that logic, many of this, our business is more connected than many parts of the world because we are a trading nation, right? So when we are a trading nation, we are more connected to the supply chain. By the very fact that we are connected to the supply chain, this whole dictum of taxing the guys who say this cukai makmur, this windfall tax, we are using cukai makmur as a different word, the windfall tax. The same windfall tax is being applied to the big boys. So if the Top Glove, the Kosan, the Supermax and all these guys, right? So who have been, obviously they're 4 times more than what they earned in 2019. If they are being taxed, their confidence and the ability to invest back into whether it is investments or back into assets or back into jobs, back into automation, whatever else is going to reduce, which means the procurement from the SMEs is also going to reduce by the same dictum. So to me, again, the basis of the government, yes, windfall tax has been put in by many developed nations, including the UK, the Spain, the US, I mean, name them. Even in Singapore, it has been done before. But those have been done when the markets were moving in a particular direction on their own speed, not artificial induced, state-induced spending. COVID is a state-induced thing. It's not what government of Malaysia did wrong. The sense that yes, they have to put in the MCO to make sure that we break the what they call chain of infection. But because of that, PPE spending goes up, medical spending goes up, COVID, glove spending goes up, so the Top Glove makes more money. So this is an artificially induced profit, not market-run profit. Yes, you charge the CPO prices. Now you say even in windfall tax, is cukai makmur, one of the things that changed, they have rationalized between, I think, East Malaysia and West Malaysia, the same price range, right? So when they have made the same price range, CPO prices is market run, not artificial induced. So to me, cukai makmur is not, while done in that same basis of windfall tax, the basis is wrong simply because this is state induced. Coming back to it, definitely SMEs will suffer to some extent in terms of 2022 because the market confidence in terms of reinvestment won't be there. If the big boys don't invest, the middle guys don't invest, the medium guys don't invest, the small, me and you, the ikan bilis who's trying to put food on the table tomorrow, we are nowhere there, bro. Nowhere.
Yeah, correct. Because for the last year and this year, okay, I also submitted some of the proposal to the government in terms of the for the big companies, let's say the mid-tier, the multinational, or the GLC, to have this suppliers development program, whereby they would actually invest in buying or nurturing the SMEs so that the SMEs can grow, can have more business from the GLCs and what. But it seems like it's not going into that way. Okay, never mind. Right now, we have a lot of questions over here. I have a request to the panelists over here. I know that it's already about 5 minutes to 10 o'clock. But for the participants over here, you want to know more, there will be there are certain questions are over here, and I request the panelists to stay another 10 to 15 minutes to answer this question. Okay, now let me choose some questions to ask first. Right now, the government trying to push for more ladies into the business. I also have to respect the ladies over here. So I would ask the lady here first, which is Manji. Manji, Venice asked, for the withholding tax to agents, dealer or distributor, subject to 2% withholding tax with effect from 1st January 2022. This apply to local company or not, or it is only apply to MNC foreign countries?
It's not applicable to both. Okay, I think from our general knowledge, withholding tax usually is only kick in when a payment's made to non-residents. That's why the questions throw in and say, is it applicable to payments to a foreign companies? But in this case here, the 2% withholding tax on the payments to agents, dealer, and distributors is applicable to local resident individuals. That means it's only applicable to local resident individuals. So, but there are certain clarifications will be needed from the government. What is the definitions of individuals? Because individuals could be carrying business under sole proprietorship, partnerships. Are they fall under these categories or not? So, certain clarifications, certainly we need certain clarifications from the governments on this.
Hopefully, Cofundr Malaysia, once you get the clarifications, you can announce it to the SMEs so that we can get some clarity over here. The next question to Paul. Paul, what kind of interest Cofundr is charging? Yeah, it sounds so good. The bank doesn't want to lend me money. I come to you, but are you sure that you are not charging me high and so forth or not? So let's be practical. We are SMEs. So cheaper or better than commercial banks? That would be the question.
Okay, I mean, to be very frank with you, if your credit is very good, you will get a very low rate. If your credit is so-so, you get a higher rate. So depends on your credit rating lah. So that will be the most direct question. But what we can do is, if you try the health check that we're offering, we can actually, sort of gauge where you are. And then let's say you're a certain rating, we can sort of tell you, okay, if you try and apply through Cofundr, this is the interest rate range that you will probably need to pay. Again, you got to remember, in this case, the interest, whatever interest you're paying, at the end of the day, it's going to go to the investors that's investing in your financing. So they are the ones so the more interest you're paying, of course, it's more interesting for the investor. So the more success you get in terms of raising the funds. So the interest is a function of fundraising in this case. But of course, it doesn't make sense if you're paying through your nose, and lose all your margins. You might as well don't do it, right? So at the end of the day, I think it will find an equilibrium in terms of the risk that the investor takes versus the cost of funding that you want to pay. So usually the market will balance it out. Yeah.
I would advise Ruby, who asked the questions, for the next few weeks, we're gonna have some sessions whereby Paul will share on the P2P financing and so forth. Follow him, and then we will get a better clarity. Okay, next question over here. Should government bring back GST? Or this is a long story, GST, SST, and so forth. What is the SME sentiment on GST? Let's have the perspective from the industry. Datuk.
Again, my personal take is yes, government should bring back GST, and I think from my little understanding with some of my tax friends, I'm sure Mani is probably knows more details than me. But I think it's in the pipeline. I think they've already, in fact, I'm even told that there is already a name fixed for it. It's not called GST, called a particular name. But I think the GST is a lot more reflective, consumption-based tax. while the political implications may be very different, I think you are starting at a lower base than what we are supposed to. We started the last time, or experimented last time at 6%. I think now a much lower base, but definitely a consumption-based tax is a lot more reflective of what I consume, I pay. I don't consume, I don't pay. Because like what Mani just now mentioned, right? So the government, and many governments are actually dependent on tax revenues to largely fund their budgets. So in Malaysia, the tax footprint is relatively still small. And I think a consumption-based tax is probably the best way to go. After all, 140 countries plus have done it, so we can't be very wrong if we adopt it. It's just that it must be adopted at a lower base and then cascaded up. You don't go for the Big Bang approach, what we tried the last time around, kind of killed it. But maybe we start at a lower base and then build on it over the period of time. I think we will do.
In your opinion, what is lower base? 2%, 1%, 3%?
3%.
3%. Or that's what you said, 3%. Mani, what about you?
3%. I'm not a tax person, so to me I can say 3% because the number sounds right now.
Okay, it's also a good number for Chinese as well. Okay, come, Mani, what about you?
I think today the newspaper just talked about this topic as well. Currently our government is heavily depends on direct income tax, where when we compare or benchmark with the international like OECD model, most of the time the direct tax revenue and indirect tax revenue could be 50-50%. But in Malaysia here, our direct tax contributions is about 75%, whereas the indirect tax, the current SST is about 25%. So it sounds like they are setting the scenes on what they are going to announce. So in terms of the rate, that will be quite difficult to answer. But I think from a lot of newspaper researchers, and then they also recommend 3%, like what Datuk has mentioned just now.
Okay, because as an SME right now, I don't have much business and I need to have Empat Eco to go and buy Empat Eco. So I got 1-3 from Dato', 1-3 from you. Dato', you want to say something?
Yeah, I just wanted to add on to what Mani said, right? So the guy who gave me this insight also told me this thing. So the big boys, like, the Crow and the Crows of the world are not the small time accountants. So some of them apparently said came back with different numbers. So one of I think the brighter guys in MOF came back and said, don't have this 0.5, 0.2, point something and all that, because those are all very hard to calculate. So let's have whole numbers. 3, 4, we work on those kind of numbers. We don't have like 3.5, 4.5, those kind of numbers, 0.5, 0.5, at some point in time, very hard to calculate. So let's do a simple, like you take 1, 2, or 3. So 1 and 2 may not sound right. So 3 may be a better number. I think that's probably where they're going to come from.
Oh, what's your number?
I'm just thinking whether I understand the need for GST or something similar to it. But I'm just thinking whether the timing is right, because obviously when you have this kind of consumption tax as an SME, when I invoice somebody, it takes me some time before they actually pay me, or they may even drag my payment. But I'm obligated to make my payment to the customs within a certain period of time, so that will impact my cash flow. And cash flow is already tight at this moment, and if you do this, what would be the implication? I'm just thinking about that. If you ask me, okay, max 1, 3, 3, 1, 3, 3, 1, now it's your turn.
Okay, cool. Now I'll go back to the questions over here. There's one question for Dato', from Siva Hangaran. Since the banks are not changing their policies in terms of the loan approval, I've decided to reach out to Tekun, but even they require a larger monthly sales flow to receive a certain amount of loan. What would be your advice?
Again, maybe we can take it individually, because we're really not sure about what is the quantum requested and what is the quantum of sales that is there. But to answer that question, I think we brought it up in the last engagement session we had with the new minister, old minister now in the new role, in MIDEC, Tan Sri Nooma. And I think Nooma mentioned it to his people in Tekun who were sitting just next to him and said, look, guys, don't use the 2019 number, don't use the 2020 number, use forward numbers when they are in business and when they were in business. So use historical credit numbers before BC, BC period, or use as existing businesses as they are running. And if again, I suppose, Keng Tek, I wanted to say this at the end. I'm sure all of us can vouch for our own chambers of commerce and organizations that we represent. I think all of us will probably step up at some point in time to provide this advisory hand-holding, hopefully in the best way we can, to any of the individuals, SMEs, whether we individuals like Paul and Mani, or we as institutions representing, say, SME or NCCIM, will definitely step up. So if anybody wants any help, please look us up. Please call us up as in our organizations, and we definitely help as much as we can. So to the gentleman who asked, please get in touch, and I can hopefully pull some strings in with friends in Intercode to not short circuit the system, but to bend it a little bit so before it breaks.
Okay. Now, yes, I totally agree with you, Dato'. Now, for the past 2 years, okay, I have to say that the SME should right now realize how important is the trade associations that represent you. Okay, despite that, right now I have stepped down from the National Vice President of the SME Association Malaysia, but I'm still very passionate in helping the SMEs. Now, the thing is that the association will be able to be your voice, and they know the government very well. They can reflect your voice over there, and they can suggest to them and work together, work with the government and not work against them. No matter how we do not like their policy, no matter how we do not like the way they do things, but we need to work with them. That's all that we can do as an association and so forth. And for the SME, we ourselves, we need to work around us internally and with the whole ecosystem, collaborate with our partners so that we can grow, pivot, and basically not only to survive, but actually grow internationally. Now, before I end the session, because right now it's already 10:06, okay? Now, some preemptive announcement. So this strong, mighty, enterprising SME program, okay, for the financial management series will continue for the next 3 weeks. Every week, same time, okay, same time, same day, and we encourage everyone to come in again to understand more. And after that, we might have another topic, maybe export marketing or maybe digitalization and so forth. We will continue to share on that. For next week, maybe Secretariat, maybe you can actually put up your slide set. Next week, what we'll do is that just now there's a request over there that I do not know what to do with the grant, the incentive, and so forth. Now, next week, what we're going to do is that we're going to talk a bit about that, the grants and incentive, but we are not going to talk about a lot about what is available. What we're going to talk about is why many SMEs fail to benefit from it. Now, SMEs will need to learn how to actually create the environment, prepare yourself to benefit from these incentives where the government has allocated. So what are things that you need to know, how to avoid the mistake, what are the tips and so forth. Next week, same time, you need to re-register. I'm sorry, you need to re-register. We will actually disseminate the information out and come in again. We will share more information to you. And if you think that this kind of platform is very useful to you, please fill in the feedback form, give us more suggestions, and also share it together, share it to your friends and get them to come in, because we need more people, more SME to have greater clarity on how to do business. And financial aspect is one of the major part whereby I am very weak. That's why that the first session, I'm trying to gain as much as possible from the expert over here. And I would like to thank very much Dato' ATK. This would not be the last invitation to you, okay? Be assured of that, okay? This will not be the last invitation to you. Thank you very much for staying up late. And Manji, I believe that a lot of the SMEs are still very weak in terms of the tax planning. we hope to collaborate with you to see how can we make it simpler for the SMEs to understand so that we can share more with the SMEs. And Paul today, he is very stable and quiet, but next week he will be in the active mode because next week he will be moderating the session in terms of putting himself as an SME, how is he going to get the grants and incentive and so forth. Now, over here, before I end the program, this is the information on the Cofundr for those that have been asking the alternative financing, what can you get, how can you get it, and so forth. You can scan the QR code over there or make an inquiry with the emails and the contact over that site. Now, before that, Paul, just now you offered something which is the credit assessment thing, meaning that, can you clarify on that? We need to give you, because you will need our credit standing, meaning that you need to check with CITOS and so forth. So what is that extra services that you can provide to the participants over here, and what do they need to do? Maybe you end it with that.
Yeah, it's you know, what we're offering is that we'll get a CITOS report for you for complimentary basis. You just need to fill up the form and consent to that credit check. At the same time, when we get the report, we will also run the numbers within our proprietary system, and then we can sort of give you a report card or a qualifying offer or status, so that you can see, oh, okay, my credit standing is this, and within Cofundr, you know, if I qualify for X amount of financing, or at this kind of rate, and what kind of tenure. So just to give you an idea of what you can potentially get under a P2P financing environment. You choose to proceed, that's great. If you don't choose to proceed, that's fine as well. It's just, you know, just to give you that information, at least you're aware that there is an alternative out there, you know, instead of just going to the bank, or if you're not getting anywhere with the bank. So this is an alternative.
Okay, good. So how to get that is that after this session, we will send you a thank you email, and there would also be a feedback form. Inside the feedback form, there will be an option for you to sign up for that complimentary services. I sign up first, Paul. Okay. Okay, so complimentary services, please take advantage of this because at this moment, I think cash flow financing and alternate financing is something that is already, it's no longer an infant stage, okay? It's becoming more matured right now, and it's also recognized by the government and secured and approval from the Security Commission and so forth. So please be mindful of these services that is offered for Cofundr. And I really hope that we will see you again next week, same time, same place, same day. But please register yourself, because we still need to know how many of you coming, and so that we will be able to do a better job next time. And last but not least, thank you, Dato', thank you, Manyi, thank you, Paul, and I'm Keng Teck, the managing consultant of Bizsphere, signing off from this strong, mighty, enterprising SME program. Thank you very much.
Good night.
Thanks.
Good night. Good night.
Thank you.
Good night. Good night.
Thank you.
Thank you, Keng Teck.
Thank you. Thank you.
Bye-bye.
You off already, Where's the mute?
are still some people over here. If you have any more questions that you want to ask, if I'm available, if you want to ask, you can ask me over here. Anyone want to ask any questions? If not, closing the forum in 1 minute time. Melvin have a question. Okay, Melvin, maybe you can just speak up, unmute yourself and speak up. Zach, can you turn off the music, please?
Hello.
Melvin, you raise your hand. Yeah. How can I help you?
Yeah. I recently just applied a loan for my hospitality company, but seems that they have to go through the bank, but they say they have to go through the government to find approved. May I know what was that?
What's that? Okay. Yeah. Dato' ATK.
Yes, sir.
There's a question over here that you might be able to answer better. Melvin over here, he has he's from the hospitality industry, and he has gone to the commercial banks to apply for loan. But the commercial bank says that he needs to get some approval from the government. Melvin, you want to clarify on your questions?
Yeah.
Melvin?
Okay. I already successfully applied from a public bank. So what the officer said from the SME loan for the clean loan that they already approved for the public bank. So the next step will be the government approval. So I'm quite confused on this. Why?
If you maybe with we just later you ask the Bizsphere team, they'll give you my number. Maybe you just give me a buzz and see what we can assist. Definitely, if there's something that you need, to connect to that last mile, I'm sure we can assist. Which ministry or agency is responsible for it?
I directly went to public bank actually.
So which public bank said they must apply through where?
They never say clearly. They just say
what business?
Restaurant.
Oh,
yeah.
Cafe.
No, it's a restaurant.
Oh, I think if I'm not mistaken, I believe so. I suspect this case. Maybe ATK, you had double confirm on that. Now, previously there are a number of the companies when they apply loan to the commercial bank, whereby the loan is either the SRF or the TRF, and so forth. And because this fund is actually allocated by the government, the bank has already done the evaluation and the review and already approved. But they have not gone the final approval from the Bank Negara yet, something like that. Yeah.
So Melvin, if you give it to us, you know why? A lot of these things, right? So whenever I'm sure Gangtech has gone through the same exercise I have gone through. We sit with the government guys, they always say, look, we'll deliver it, we'll blah, 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 blah. So what we always have the issue is bringing real case to it. While we always say, look, you guys are late. But they always will challenge us and says, you bring one real case to me, I will sort it out for you. So I think maybe, those good things is, if you can really give it to us, we can really take it and say, look, I got a real case, and why not you first solve it for me? Forget about anecdotal evidence. I got real life case here. So if you could probably get in touch and do, I'm sure we can help.
Yeah.
Okay.
So
sure.
Melvin, what you do is that later on you contact marketing@bizsphere.com.my, write your request. Then I would actually share with you the contact of Dato' ATK. Then we will take it on from there. We hope that we can actually help you as much as possible, and that's our role over here. Okay, Melvin?
Okay, sure.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you very much.
So, for the rest of the participants over here, thank you very much for your participation. We really hope that you have enjoyed and actually have a lot of insights. And we will be closing this platform in 10 seconds right now. Thank you very much, and I'm off for my dinner. Thank you. Bye.
Thank you, everyone. Good night.
Thank you. Bye.